Okay, picture this for a second. Imagine you've made it. And I don't just mean you're successful. I mean, you are a legend. Your name is known all over the world. You're so wealthy that your great-great-grandkids won't have to worry about a thing. You've got a loving family, you're in great health, you have the respect of pretty much everyone. Now, imagine waking up one day, right at the peak of all that, and feeling absolutely nothing. Just this huge, terrifying emptiness, the feeling that none of it, not one bit of it, actually matters. Well, this isn't some thought experiment. This was the actual reality for one of history's greatest writers, Leo Tolstoy. And we're not talking about some late-night dorm room questions here. For Tolstoy, these questions became like a sickness, a constant, deafening roar in his head that just drowned out all the joy his life was supposed to have. You know, they're the same questions we all kind of ask ourselves in quiet moments, right? But for him, they became this all-consuming obsession, a matter of life and death. He had every single answer society tells us to want: fame, fortune, family, and he found out they were all worthless in the face of this giant void. And let's be super clear about the level of success we're talking about. This was Leo Tolstoy, a literary titan. I mean, think of him as the Shakespeare or the Cormac McCarthy of his day. He wrote War and Peace and Anna Karenina, novels so huge, so important, that they literally changed the game for literature worldwide. The man wasn't just a successful writer, he was a global genius. On top of the fame, he was just loaded. He was an aristocrat, he owned this massive country estate, and he had a fortune that put him in the absolute top tier of society. He lived a life of comfort and privilege that, for most people back then, was basically an impossible fantasy. And it wasn't just a public success story. His private life was full too. He had a devoted wife, a house full of kids. I mean, if you had a checklist for a perfect life, this guy was ticking every single box. It was a flawless picture of achievement and happiness. So the big question is, how does a life that looks so perfect just completely fall apart from the inside? In this explainer, we're going to follow the chapters of Tolstoy's incredible and frankly terrifying journey. We'll start with the man who had it all. Then we'll look at the parable that came to define his whole crisis, the dragon in the well. We'll follow him as he hunts for answers from the world's greatest thinkers. We'll check out the 4 dead ends he saw all around him. And then we'll see how he found an answer in the last place he ever expected. And finally, how he completely remade his life from the ashes. So here he is, this man standing on top of the world. He's climbed every mountain you could possibly want to climb. And then, just like that, the ground beneath his feet crumbles into dust. The crisis hit him when he was 50 years old, an age where you'd think he'd be kicking back, enjoying his success. But for Tolstoy, this was the beginning of the end. It was like a tidal wave of dread just washed over him, and all the happiness he'd ever known just evaporated. His brilliant mind basically turned on itself. It became like a toddler, constantly screaming, why? Why bother writing? Why love my family? Why even bother to live? And the silence that answered him was absolutely terrifying. And this was way more than just a midlife crisis. It was a complete spiritual breakdown. The urge to end it all was so powerful that, as he wrote later in his book, A Confession, he had to literally trick himself into staying alive. Get this. He, a strong, healthy man, started hiding ropes from himself so he wouldn't be tempted to hang himself in his own office. He stopped taking a gun with him on his usual hunts because he was afraid of that easy way out. The only real escape he had was sleep. Those few hours of blissful nothingness where the questions would finally shut up. So he's right on the edge. How in the world did he pull back? How do you even start to make sense of a despair that deep? Well, he didn't start with an answer. He started with a story. An old Eastern parable that, when he really thought about it, explained his whole life with horrifying clarity. It's a story about a traveler, a beast, a dragon, and a few drops of honey. Okay, so the story goes like this. A traveler is walking along when suddenly, this ferocious beast starts charging at him. He runs for his life, just pure terror. For Tolstoy, this beast wasn't just an animal. It was the dread, the suffering, the meaninglessness of life that was always chasing him. He's desperate, so he sees a dried-up well and just leaps in, hoping to find safety at the bottom. But his relief doesn't last long because he finds himself in an even worse trap. Because waiting for him at the bottom isn't safety. It's a giant dragon, its mouth wide open, ready to swallow him whole. And Tolstoy knew, instantly, what that dragon was: death, the inevitable end that's waiting for all of us. He was trapped, dread above him and total annihilation below. In a last-ditch effort, he grabs onto a small branch growing out of the side of the well. He's just clinging on for dear life, hanging there between these two horrors. He knows his arms will give out. He knows the branch will break. The situation is completely hopeless. And this is the part of the story that just guts you. As he's hanging there, knowing he's doomed, he sees two little mice, one black, one white, circling the branch, just gnawing away at it, day and night, eating away his time. But on the leaves of the branch, he sees a few drops of honey. So what does he do? He sticks out his tongue and licks them. For that one sweet moment, he can forget the beast above and the dragon below. Tolstoy realized, that's my life. His family, his art, his money, they were nothing but drops of honey. Sweet, sure, but just tiny distractions from the horrifying truth of where he was. So this story gave him a name for his problem, but it didn't give him a solution. Now he understood his situation, but that didn't help at all. So, being the great thinker he was, he started a massive quest for an answer. He figured if he couldn't solve it, surely the wisest people who ever lived had a clue. He turned his incredible mind to philosophy and science. He devoured the works of the greats. Solomon in the Bible, who said all is vanity. Socrates, who said a true philosopher is basically practicing for death. The Buddha, who said attachment to life is the root of all suffering. He read them all, desperately searching for a logical way out. But you know what he found? Their clear logical thinking just pulled him deeper into despair. They all seemed to land on the same grim conclusion. Life is a joke, it's evil, and not existing is actually better. As he put it, happy is the one who was never born. All right, so philosophy's a bust. What about science? Surely the cold hard facts could help. But science was even colder. It could explain how the universe works with amazing detail, but it had absolutely nothing to say about why. For Tolstoy, the science of his day, things like Darwinism, just made his nihilism worse. It basically said we're all just an accident, a random clump of particles that became conscious for a little while in a universe that doesn't care, and then we just decay and disappear. Science gave him facts, but it couldn't give him meaning. So, the greatest minds in history had failed him. Reason and logic just led him down a dark path. So he changed his strategy. He stopped looking in books and started looking at the people around him. His friends, the other wealthy, educated aristocrats. How were they dealing with the same problem? And he realized they were all trapped in one of 4 invisible prisons. He saw 4 ways people cope with the dragon in the well. The first and most popular was just ignorance. Just don't think about it. The second was what he called Epicureanism. You know the dragon is there, but you distract yourself by licking as much honey as you can find. Pleasures, parties, ambitions. The third was the path of strength. You see clearly that life is a stupid and evil joke, and you have the guts to end it yourself. And the fourth, the one he was on, was the path of weakness. You see the whole horror show, but you don't have the strength to end it. You just drift. For Tolstoy, the first path was no longer an option. His eyes were wide open. The third, suicide, was a daily battle. And the fourth was a living hell. It was that second path, the life of distraction, that he saw all his friends on. But it was just another drop of honey, a temporary fix that never solved the real problem. You know, this struggle to find meaning, even with massive success, is pretty universal. If you're liking the story of overcoming these huge challenges, do have a look at our video on Jack Ma. It shows how an ordinary Chinese boy dominated global commerce, overcoming all kinds of rejection. Now, with these 4 paths leading nowhere, Tolstoy was completely and utterly stuck. He'd exhausted everything: the wisdom of philosophers, the facts of science, the lifestyles of the rich and powerful, all dead ends. He was truly lost. And the answer, when it finally showed up, didn't come from a book or a brilliant idea. It was hiding in the one place his aristocratic world had never really bothered to look. He started to actually watch the peasants, the uneducated, poor, working people of Russia. And what he saw just blew his mind. Here were people facing brutal conditions, endless work, and real suffering, but they weren't in despair. In fact, they seemed to have this quiet strength, this deep sense of purpose that his rich, smart friends were totally missing. While his friends were paralyzed by how meaningless it all was, the peasants just endured. They lived their hard lives and faced death with a kind of peace he couldn't even imagine. And he realized the difference wasn't money or brains, it was their simple, unshakable faith. And this was it. This was the big aha moment. His whole search was based on a mistake. He was using a finite tool, his reason, to try and answer an infinite question. But a finite mind can't logically figure out the meaning of an infinite universe. Reason, he decided, always leads back to the dragon in the well.
The peasants had something else, something that worked outside of logic: faith. A belief in God, in a purpose bigger than their own lives, a connection to the infinite that gave their finite, hard lives a meaning that transcended everything. It was an irrational leap, something his brain couldn't prove, but he realized it was the only possible answer to the question of life.
This wasn't just a new idea for Tolstoy to think about, it was a blueprint for a brand new life. Embracing faith didn't just calm him down, it completely rewired his whole existence and set him on a totally radical new path. So the man who had everything started to systematically give it all away. He renounced his title, his privileges, he started dressing like a peasant and doing manual labor. He poured all his time and energy into helping the poor and fighting for social justice. He even tried to give away his fortune and the copyrights to his legendary books, which, as you can imagine, made his wife and family furious. But in this new life of humility and service, he finally found the real peace that all his fame and money could never, ever buy. And he lived that way until he died at age 82, a man who had gone to the bottom of the well and actually found a way out. Tolstoy's story is just incredible, isn't it? From the absolute peak of success to the bottom of suicidal despair, and finally to a real peace he found not in what he could prove, but in what he could believe. And it leaves us with a pretty tough question for our own lives, especially today, in a world that puts logic and reason on a pedestal. What's the irrational belief in love, in community, in a cause, in something bigger than you that keeps you from the dragon in the well? What gives your life meaning?